Hey, it's Soleil, and this is episode 193 of the Orange Pill Investor. And today I want to talk about setting up a poor man's covered call in my IRA. But before I get into that, I will tell a cautionary tale about poor man's covered calls because I started selling covered calls where you actually own 100 shares and cash secured puts somewhere in May 2020. And I tripled my account in about a year and a half. So I was patting myself on the back for that, but I was still kind of nervous. I'm like, this is easy mode. How how am I doing this? I had watched hundreds of hours of options training videos on YouTube, Adam in the Money's channel, and also Tasty Trades YouTube channels. Shout out to them for all of the knowledge that I gained over the years. But I guess I started eggheading it a little bit too much, as somebody told me. And I started switching my strategy in here somewhere from the covered calls and the cash secured puts to poor man's covered calls. And that's where you buy a deep in the money leaps instead of 100 shares. It's cheaper to do that, so you can actually increase your profits if the price is going up. But I had a bunch of them in Tesla. Tesla was 400 a share right about here, and then somewhere here it was down to 100 a share. So my account suffered catastrophic destruction. I basically gave it all back, right? So all the money that I had made within 6 months, I was back down to where I started. And so why would I do this again? why would I? Why would I tempt fate? And the reason is because it's not necessarily the strategy itself. True, it is a bad strategy in a bear market, but if I had just kept my position size down to 10%, maybe even 20% of my account's value, I would have been fine. So position sizing is not talked about enough. If a position size is too great and something happens to it, then basically you're screwed. The other, you could rank either one of these number one and number two in priority for options, but liquidity is also a factor. So in MicroStrategy, if I want to sell a cash secured put, it says you can do that for $5.45 here. However, the bid ask spread, you're trying to sell it, but people are only offering 515, 525. So you might try this at 543 and it doesn't work, and then you have to go down to 540 and it doesn't work, and then you go to 535 and 530, and you finally might get a fill somewhere in the middle or all the way at the bid. So if you lose 10, 20 bucks getting into this trade, and then you want to close it for profit a couple of days later, you're patting yourself on your back because you won the trade, but it's going to cost you another 10, 20 bucks to get out. That's eating into your profits. So position sizing is true for anyone investing. That's why most people diversify into non-correlated assets. I routinely do not do that. I'm all in on MicroStrategy and Tesla at this point. But based on my conviction level, I am okay with that. All right, so why would I do this in my IRA? Even though it's riskier. So, and this is an example of why covered calls are quote unquote risky to begin with, not necessarily risky to the downside, but I had 100 shares of MicroStrategy back when it was 600, 700 a share maybe. And my shares got called away. And then it was too expensive for me to buy back in. So then I had to formulate a poor man's covered call, because you can you can buy a leaps for a poor man's covered call for probably half the price of the shares. So that'll let me sell more covered calls in my IRA along the way, even though I couldn't afford 100 shares. Then I got excited because of the 10-to-1 split. So I bought back in, and now I can afford shares again. But then as I was reviewing the MSTY over the weekend and putting that video together, I started thinking about the poor man's covered calls again, because IRA accounts are cash accounts. You can't use margin here. So when I'm buying these shares, I'm paying full price. And so in a margin account, buying leaps for poor man's covered calls is less attractive, because with margin, these shares might cost me half price, and it's weird, I have two different margin accounts and they're charging me like 7,000 in one and 10,000 in the other. So, and maybe just because I have so much more money in one account, it's not considered as big of a risk. But I'm not exactly sure why, but they've got all kinds of weird formulas that they apply shit to. But the discounts that you can get for owning shares in a margin account are not available to me in this IRA. So now I'm like, well, damn it, I should have just kept selling the poor man's covered calls in here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to just to show how it's done and maybe utilize my cash a little bit more effectively. So if I close one of my covered calls, I'll select the default quantity here. So 100 shares and one covered call. Close this for a credit. All right, now I got some buying power to play with. I am going to go out to 494 days. Anything over a year is considered a leaps. Technically, I could set up a poor man's covered call with the 6-month one, but not necessary. And this just makes me not have to roll my long call very often. I can just buy this once and just sell covered calls against it for the next 494 days. You know, I never keep leaps under 90 days, so I can for 400 days I can sell weekly covered calls against this. And in general, anything over 0.7 is probably all right, but 0.8, 0.9 is much safer. So I am going to see what it's going to cost me. Might as well sometimes liquidity is better at these whole numbers. So this is working out perfectly. I am going to buy the 100. This is a 0.8 delta. So that means that the price of MicroStrategy goes up $1. The price of this option contract will go up 80 cents. So it's a synthetic stock, but it's not perfect. And that's why with these, we have to be very careful about the covered call strike that we select. If you own 100 shares, you can just sell an at the money covered call or go all of your upside and just collect a bunch of premium if you desire, because the worst case scenario is that those 100 shares get called away. With poor man's covered call, you have to be careful, because if by expiration date next week, this Friday, the call that we sell could go to 1 delta. And it absolutely will go to 1 delta by Friday. On Friday at expiration, the price of the stock is moving 1-to-1 with the price of the option for the one that's expiring. This one will still be around 80. If the price goes up to like 150, this might be like 0.9 or something, but it's still not going to completely approach 1, which means that the losses on the covered call are unlimited, and the amount that we can gain on this long call is limited. So there is still a little bit of a risk if you don't choose the appropriate strike. And there's a site called Blue Collar Investments, I think, that has a really nice formula. I used to just eyeball this and try to collect 1% of the premium. So buying this one for 70, I would just try to collect 70 cents. But they have a nice formula that's actually going to allow me to collect more. So let's go ahead and buy this bad boy. Now, I don't want to pay the asking price. So let's try to come down here to 69. Probably going to have to walk this up and pay a little more. All right, 70.75 filled. So now I can sell a covered call for this week. Or I can go out to 45 days. And I think that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. And let's go through the process of how to evaluate, should I sell weekly covered calls or should I sell them out to 45 days to expiration? I was actually going to do this tomorrow because that's the perfect, Tuesdays are when you can get 45 days to expiration. Today it's going to be 46, not really a big deal. But I wanted to do the MSTY synthetic stock today, but I don't have enough money in this in this other account to do it. So I transferred some money over. Tomorrow I'll have it, and I'll just flip flop the days that I record each video. All right. So if I want to sell, let me see, where do I have this? Here we go. BlueCollarinvestor.com has a really cool formula that they use to make sure that your poor man's covered call is structured correctly. I think they got some kind of paid services or whatever. But I will share the link to this page. This is free. You don't need to, this is not behind a paywall or anything. And the way that you set this up is the short call on your strike, which is the one I'm about to pick out, minus the leaps strike, which I already purchased. That's 100 strike, plus the premium that I get paid from this call should be greater than the cost I paid for the leaps option. If your eyes glazed over, do not worry. I've had to go over this a bunch in my head, and it's taken quite a bit of practice for this to become intuitive. But let's just think about this. So I'm rearranging the formula a little bit. The leaps that I picked was $100, and I paid $70 for it. So that means if I go to the 170 strike and see what I can get, there ain't much here. And that plus this premium would need to be greater than what I paid for the leaps to begin with. And this is not even worth trading here. But if I went down to trying to get like 1%, that would bring me down to what right here, the 150. So if I go back to the formula, short call strike, if I take the 150 minus the leap strike, which was 100, that's 50, plus the short premium needs to be greater than the cost of the leaps, which was 70. So cannot make that work here. So this does not seem like a viable poor man's covered call for just selling weeklies. You know, down here at the money, this would be way too much risk. So if I go out to 45 days, however, and I go up to that 170 strike, I can collect $600. Now, that seems like, oh, okay, well, I can collect 600 at the money for weeklies, and I can collect 600 after 45 days. So this is the same, right? Not exactly. With the ones that are at 45 days to expiration, generally you only collect half of this because you're going to close it and reopen it within 2 to 3 weeks. So that's already bringing my profits down in half. And then since you're doing that every 2 weeks, it's cut in half again. So this is only making about 150 a week, which compared to my purchase price of 7,000 is actually not that bad. That's like 2% a week. But since the formula says that these three together just has to be greater than the cost of the leaps option, I can actually slide this down a little bit more. Let's see if I can do 160. So the short call strike minus my leap strike is 160 minus 100. That's 60. Plus the 700 brings me to 67. And that's not quite enough. So let's try the 165. 165 minus 100 of my long call is $65. Plus the 700 brings me to 72. And 7,200 is just greater than the 70 that I paid for this. Wait, that's not it. This one. Than the 70 that I paid. So this is as greedy as I can get with this one. So I am going to sell. Let's not pay. Oh, why do I have a buy? Oops. Let's say 165, right? There we go. Let's sell the covered call, not buy another call. I'll be able to come down a little bit. Let's try to sell it for 7. And this is a real-time illustration of why liquidity is important, because I want to get into this trade, but I cannot get into it at the mid price. I'm having to sell it a little bit cheaper than kind of the advertised sticker price here. All right, there we go. All right, so 46 days to expiration. I sold this for 620. I should only expect to collect about 25% of this per week. So that's about $150 a week, which is, if I was collecting 1% of this a week on a traditional covered call, I would only be collecting about $70 a week. So I actually should be able to get 2% returns on this per week. And I will be able to accumulate profits on this up to the 165 strike. So there's about $30 a share in upside that I can also collect before I lose this. And I was able to do that for about half, a little more than half of the price of this. All right, so if I want to try to sell, should I peel off another 100 shares and do another one of these? I could probably do 2 more. Let's do that. So let's sell another, or get rid of another one of these. All right, same deal. Let's go out to, these would have been a little bit more affordable if I had only gone out to 6 months, but I'd rather be conservative and go out as far as possible. Sorry, I'm gonna, I should be able to do 2 more of these. And 46 days to expiration. Let's sell the 165s again. 2 of them. And let's walk it down again. Trying to get as much as possible. Sold the other ones for what, 620? Okay, those actually filled at 640. So my average price is 633. All right, that works. And I've got 6,000 left over. That is not quite enough to get another one unless, huh. I could go with one that's a little riskier, but that will change the strikes that I can use as well. So if I go to the 110 strike, I can get that for 65. It's a 0.77 delta. But what if I do one that's at 193? And I go to the 100 again. I can get that for, let's do one of these. This isn't technically a leaps because it's only 6 months old, or 6 months days to expiration. But I can get this for way cheaper. So let's just do this. Okay, for a second there, that panicked me. All right, so this one, the calculations are going to be a little bit different. The strike that I picked is the same, but the cost is much cheaper. So I only really have to go to around the 150 strike. Even at the money, this might work. I'm not going to do it, but I just want to check and see. So at the money, I could get paid 80 bucks. That's actually a little bit more than 1%, so it's not too bad. Let's go to 45 days to expiration again. Let's go to the 150 strike. That's going to get me $1,000 in premium. But I really only need that to be this plus, I think, all the way to the 140. So the covered call strike is 140 minus the strike of the long call option, which is 100. That leaves me with $40. So the short call, that's 40 plus the short call premium has to be greater than the cost of the leaps. So 40 plus the cost of the short call, 40 plus 13 is 53, and 53 is greater than the cost of my leaps, right? Where's the, there it is, 193. No, where the hell is it? Oh, my eyes. I might have to get my glasses out. Oh, God, here we go. I was looking right at it. All right, so this cost me 52. So that checks out. 140 minus 100 is 40. 40 plus 13 is 53. So this is just about as greedy as I could be. I could sell anything above this, but the 140 strike is the lowest strike that I can sell and still be safe if the price of MicroStrategy suddenly goes Godzilla candle. And I should be expecting to collect half of this, half again, so 700, 350. Should be able to collect about 350 a week on this. Which is insane compared to how much the the leaps cost. Now, keep in mind that this 6-month long call theta is way higher on this bad boy. So, granted, I only paid 5,000 for it, but its value is going to be dropping every day much more rapidly than that one that I bought way the hell out 500 days from now. So that is another risk. So I'll be making more per week selling these covered calls. However, I'm also sacrificing more upside here. So is that something, do I want to be this greedy with the premium? I think so, because I'm just going to plow this premium right back into long calls anyway. So I'm selling short to buy longer calls. So let's take a look at these positions. I sold this one for 1,300. I sold 3 more for 600 a pop. That's like $3,000 worth of calls. So I got this 2,500 left. Let me just sell off all of this riot. How many do I have? 95. Let me just click close position. All right, that gives me an extra 700 bucks. So that's approximately the $3,000 that I collected. So now I want to go as long as possible. So let's see here. What can I get with $3,000? Can I get? Yep. So I can get one. Leaps expiring 500 days from now. That leaves me with another $1,000. So I think the 193s. Yep, I could probably get 2 of these. All right, let's walk this down or walk this up and pay a little more. All right, 200 bucks left. I guess I can go buy some more riot. Buy the riot back. Or should I just leave 200 in cash? No, I hate cash. So how many shares can I get? Let's see, 10 shares would be 70 bucks. So 30 shares. Almost. $28 shares. Okay, there we go. All right, I got no cash in the IRA again. So now I have 300 shares of MicroStrategy. I previously had 500 and I was selling 5 covered calls a week. So now I have 300 shares. I've got these 3 weeklies that I feel comfortably selling against them. And now I have 4 more covered calls that I'm selling against these 4 long calls. Oh shit. Uh, these 4 long calls. So you can see I sold 200 shares of MicroStrategy, and then by repurposing them as poor man's covered calls, I was able to double the number of covered calls that I'm selling, which should double the amount of premium that I'm allowed to collect every week, which will increase the amount of long calls that I am able to purchase every week. So I think that's it for now. Poor man's covered calls can be a lucrative strategy as long as the market doesn't go to shit. And so it should not be the majority of a portfolio. This is my IRA, and I won't see this money for a decade or more. So short term, I really don't care what happens in here. But the reason I'm saying that is for most people, this would probably be even too much. So I've got 300 shares of MicroStrategy, but I've got 4 leaps. That's probably too many leaps. I just was maximizing every little bit of buying power in this account. So hopefully that was a fun exercise, and stay tuned tomorrow if you're interested in recreating the MSTY synthetic covered call strategy. I will be tweaking it. I'll be taking some more risk, of course, than they take, and I will explain why and why I'm willing to take that risk, and also how I plan to mitigate it. So looking forward to that. That should be a fun one as well. All right, be good, y'all.